Thank you everyone for tuning in. My name is Shahrukh Nasir. I'm an RCIC from beautiful Vancouver, BC. Today I'm making a video on how to apply for a study permit and what are the best practices we have seen in terms of getting approvals for study permits. So the first thing we need to understand is when you're applying for a study permit, there are some mandatory requirements. One of the most mandatory requirement is to make sure that you have a DLI, acceptance from a designated learning institution. You need to also show that you have sufficient funds to cover your tuition in Canada. Some countries have you have to provide a medical or a police certificate, medical examination report or a police certificate, so that's also mandatory. Some of the other things that I want to explain in this study permit is when you're applying for a study permit to Canada, of course you have to complete whatever the checklist requires from the study permit office, from the visa office that you're applying under. But the main thing that you need to understand is when you're applying for a study permit is to apply under the program which is most suitable to your career or your future goals. There is a requirement to provide a study plan. When you're applying for a study permit, you have to attach a study plan which explains the reasons to why you want to study in Canada. Some of the key questions in this study plan is: why are you selecting Canada to continue your education? Why is this education not available in your country, or have you looked in your country to find similar education? How will this education help you in your future goals and careers? So these are some of the key questions that you have to answer in a study plan. So I'll give you an example just to put it in context. So someone who was working in, let's say, electrical engineering and has a bachelor's degree and wants to come to Canada to pursue a master's degree in electrical engineering at UBC, for example, University of British Columbia. That makes sense from an acceptance point of view for the college or institution. Now we have to answer the other questions to the officer. So the other questions that the officer has is, why is this person coming to Canada to complete it? Why cannot they do the master's in their own country? So you have to be able to explain that to the government, and why is that the case? Further than that, you have to show financial support. That why does your financial standing allow you to be able to pay? Studying in Canada at that level is pretty expensive, so you need to have financial support of your friends and family, and in most circumstances, if you're a mature student, it should be yourself. There is some discretion recently for your relatives to show some support, but that will be taken into consideration along with how much financial support you have. So if you're planning to come and study in Canada, I recommend that you basically have the financial support. First of all, you have to be able to show that you can pay the first year of tuition. If you have dependents and if you have spouses, then you have to show more. So for a spouse, you have to add $4,000 on that, and $3,000 per dependent. Generally, the guidelines are that you have to show $10,000 for first year of stay, on top of the first year of tuition that you're going to pay. So this is separate from the tuition that you will have to pay. You have to show that support, and then once you have shown that support, then you have to also show that your intention is to come and study in Canada, and then to make sure that you will oblige by the rules of the Canadian study permit, which allows you to work 20 hours maximum per week and go back to your home country after you have completed your studies. If you have other intentions of getting permanent residency in Canada, that's great. And if that's the case, then make sure that you're applying for an institution that has postgraduate work permit. We have a wonderful program for master's students in Canada and PhD students, specifically in the province of BC, where once you finish your master's degree from certain colleges and under certain programs from certain universities, you can apply directly to PR. That's available in BC and some other provinces as well. However, I focus on BC, so I want to tell people to look into that. I'm going to add a link for that description. So if you're thinking of doing a master's in Canada, I encourage you to apply under that program. And why I say that program is once you finish your studies, you can apply for permanent residency directly. UBC and big institutions, most of their courses and programs are postgraduate work permit eligible. What that means is once you finish your program, you can continue to work in Canada for any employer for a period of 1 to 3 years. And why that is very important is most of the applicants who come here, once they finish their studies, they want to stay for longer and get permanent residency. However, the way the Canadian immigration system works, you cannot just transition easily from a temporary residence to a permanent residence. It takes at least a year to two for the processing of the documents and everything else. And this postgraduate work permit allows the time for the person in Canada to stay in Canada and work in Canada under legal status to get their permanent residency documents. So once again, very important that any college, university that you're applying under is on the postgraduate work permit list, or that there's some type of a pathway that you understand clearly on how you're going to go from a non-eligible PGW institution to an eligible PGW institution, and then in the future get your permanent residency. So those who have dealt with me and those who continuously deal with me, I like to focus on the full picture, which is most applicants that are wanting to come to Canada want to get permanent residency, and having a pathway to permanent residency before you leave your home country is the most important learning that a person who's overseas should do before they depart and leave their home country. There's numerous examples from my experience, from the people I have met, from the stories you read online of temporary students, workers coming to Canada under the false impression that they will get permanent residency, and then later on, after a year, 2, 3, 4 years, they have no permanent residency. They've exhausted their savings, and now they have to leave back to their home country, without any adequate funds. So do not fall into that trap. Be aware of that trap before you leave your home country. Make sure you make a plan on how you're going to support yourself in Canada. If your planning is to study in Canada, then make sure you have a plan on how that study translates to a postgraduate work permit, and then later on to a permanent residency pathway. So I hope this helped some of the students, mature students specifically, those over the ages of 30 and 35 who are wanting to come and study in Canada, to understand the practical tips and to understand the practical complexity of this type of a study permit, or when they're coming to study in Canada. Think these things through very carefully before you make your plan of studying in Canada. I cannot stress the importance of having a plan before you leave your country and departing on that plane to come to Canada. Make sure you do that. If you have any questions, if you have any other issues that you think are going to happen, then you can consult with professionals in Canada, and we would be gladly able to help you with any type of case by case issues. So thank you for tuning in. I look forward to making more videos like this to help you, and thank you once again for tuning into my channel. Bye for now.